absolutely delighted to be here, and a big thank you to the Mandarin Oriental for hosting us this morning. I'm going to pass over to my wonderful panelists and also to Sarah very shortly, who without Sarah this event would not have come together. But first of all, I wanted to say a few words myself about International Women's Day. So I was thinking yesterday about where International Women's Day started. And it actually started in 1911 off the back of the suffragette movement, and was really focused around celebration and recognition of amazing women. And I think International Women's Day probably means something different to everybody here. But over the last few years, there has been a kind of man-bashing sort of feel to some of the events, which I definitely don't want to have for my own event and this event today, because really it's about a celebration of women who've raised you up. And I know for me, all of you here and some amazing women who have championed me on my journey have been the backbone of the business that I've built and am building. So I think what we really want to do is celebrate the amazing women in our lives today. And so for me, I thought I would share a little story about some of the women in here who've had a real impact on me. So when I joined the financial services industry, I joined a firm where I was the only female financial advisor. I felt like I was in a bit of a boys' club. There was lots of shooting days and golf, rugby, football. And actually, not that I could ever have envisioned it would have grown to this morning, but it's where the Frankie's Club started, was about bringing women together, starting talking about money and helping us to navigate our own paths. And on that journey, I met the amazing Judith Whelan and Caroline, who is hiding. And without you both, started my advisory board, introduced me to my investors. And I say, a massive part of my journey is that my business is championed by women, but backed by two amazing men. And look at us now. We've grown. We're on our second birthday of the wealth management business, and the growth has been really quite phenomenal. And also to my team. So up until about 10 days ago, we were an all-female team, and we've grown phenomenally over the last 2 years. So a massive thank you to Sophie, Eve, who's hiding over there, and Jane, wherever you're sitting. It's been absolutely amazing. So without all of you supporting me and helping us to grow, none of this would be possible. So a big thank you. And now we also have our first diversity hire, as I like to call it, with Tom joining the team, who's not here today, but I'm sure he was too scared to attend the International Women's Day event. So today is all about a celebration of amazing women doing amazing things and championing each other to help us on our paths. So that's enough from me, but I want to, as I said earlier, massive thank you to Sarah, who I'm going to introduce now and let her tell you a little bit more about this wonderful hotel and the work that she does before we start our panel.
Just a really quick one before Sarah introduces Denise. You just want to quickly give a background on the product that you guys have in your channel.
Right. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone, and just want to say thank you to Frankie and the team for having us here today. My name is Denise. I am the co-founder of a very, very new brand called Few, which is a vitamin and adaptogen support spray brand. And you'll find our first hero product on your seats. If anybody needs another one, let me know. And this is a steady on spray. I come from a film and TV background, so I've had many years of standing in a field at 4 a.m. and night shoots and a lot of long hours and burnout. And I always found it tricky to find the right thing to support me and my other crew members, like at the right time, stuff that happens fast and it's easy, doesn't make me feel like I'm getting anything wrong, that I need a routine, that, you need to add to your wellness in the morning. You don't need a sea swim for this. This is like a really lovely oral spray. It's got B6, ashwagandha, L-theanine, all sorts of lovely things. And it just acts really fast to just help calm the nervous system, and you get on with your day. Please enjoy. Any questions, let me know. We're at fewcrew.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. That spray sounds amazing. Sorry. So just a very brief introduction. My name is Sarah Richards. I run a luxury travel PR agency in London, all women. I would like diversity higher, but we can't seem to find one. I'm very passionate about supporting other women. I wanted to introduce you as well to Kate Richards in the corner, who's the director of marketing for this hotel. So please do find her as well. We've been representing the hotel for about 18 months now, and it is exquisite. They have a beautiful spa in the basement, obviously this rooftop bar, restaurant, so do have a nose around afterwards if you have time. Thank you, Frankie. So Frankie came into my life through my best friend, Victoria, who is a client of Frankie's. And likewise, I've known Daisy through another friend and Victoria through a school friend. So I just thought, let's try and connect everybody and make this happen. And so thank you. I think it's going to be really interesting. I can't wait.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So welcome, Victoria and Daisy. Shall I, before I kind of lurch into my questions that I've got for you both, would it be okay for you to introduce yourselves to us this morning?
Hi, I'm Victoria Scholar, and I'm head of investment at Interactive Investor. We are a DIY investment platform in the UK, the second biggest after Hargreaves Lansdown. And my role is as a market analyst, trying to keep across everything that's going on across stock markets and bonds and everything else to try and create some interesting analysis. And I also do quite a bit of TV and radio, and I have a Telegraph column as well, talking about the markets, and it is called Rate My Portfolio. And it's basically like an assessment of different people's portfolios they write in. It's kind of like an agony aunt finance column. So yeah, that's me. And thank you very much to everyone for being here. And it's really lovely to see so many women who are obviously very interested in the world of finance all here together. So yeah, thank you for asking me as well.
Thank you.
I'm Daisy Natchbull, and hello everyone too. I have Savile Row's first shop front for women in its 300-year history. So we make beautiful, bespoke, anything you can imagine: dresses, suits, jackets, trousers, skirts. And I also have a beautiful ready-to-wear collection as we grow into more of a kind of global luxury women's wear label.
Amazing. And Daisy, on that, the first woman on Savile Row in 300 years, it's amazing. What inspired you to start your business? What was it that...
So we're the first shop front for women on Savile Row. So Savile Row has made for women 4 generations. If you look back at some of the books, Queen Victoria or Catherine Hepburn had visited some of these incredible tailors over time. But what I couldn't understand is that there was no shop front where I could walk down the street as a woman on Savile Row and see female mannequins, women tailors, women shopping, looking around, feeling seen, feeling that there was a place for them. And so I worked at Huntsman on Savile Row, which is a very famous men's tailor. If you've seen Kingsman, it's the tailor in that movie. And I really wanted to create and carve out a shop for women that made women feel there was a place for them. And so in 2016, I did a PR stunt where I was trying to bring more women to Savile Row and raise awareness. And I became the first woman to wear a top hat and tails at Royal Ascot, which they tried to stop me getting in. And at the time, I can't quite believe it, women weren't allowed to wear trousers to the event. So subsequently, they changed the dress code after my PR stunt. And then it kind of got me thinking. I was like, why am I trying to bring more women to a men's tailor? Why don't we start one and give women that opportunity to walk in and feel that that's, not with a creaky bell and someone staring, but beautiful de Gournay wallpaper and diptyque candles burning and feeling like it was almost a second home.
Amazing. And the resistance that you saw from the Royal Ascot, did you have resistance from your peers on Savile Row?
It's been such a funny journey, and getting to Savile Row is a story in and of itself, but I think people realized it was time. I think as women, we're the ones who really need clothing made to us. We go through IVF, mastectomies, menopause, periods on a daily basis. We gain 2 or lose 2 kilograms. And I think that Savile Row understood that this was very much needed and it was very much missing from the street. But, on the other hand, I've also raised 3 rounds of funding, and that was interesting starting out and, you know, feeling somewhat, I guess, being misunderstood as a woman whilst I was doing that process, for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Victoria, you know, it's for both of us, stereotypically, finance or not stereotypically, is a very male-dominated space. What challenges have you faced, and how do you think we can help encourage more young women or women come into the industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is a heavily male-dominated industry, and I think it has improved a lot. But certainly when I started out, like you, I was one of the only women in my internship, and it's hard to make allies with men in the way that it is with women. You know, I think like often we gravitate naturally towards other women, and we've just got more to talk about, haven't we? And and we enjoy each other's company. And when it is male dominated, forging those relationships, particularly with more senior people, can be more difficult. You know, like how Sheryl Sandberg talks about, if you're on a work trip as a young girl with a man, it's much harder to have a drink at the bar than it would be if you were a young guy with your senior boss, because that just looks like mentoring, whereas with a young girl and an older man, it looks like a date. So it's just, we just have those challenges. I think for me now, as a mum, the most important thing really is kind of like having my boundaries. So if I'm working from home one day, then I stick to it. You know, that's the day I'm working from home, or I don't work on Fridays anymore because I look after my son. So I just always make sure that I stick to that. And I think people respect you for that. If you just completely stick to the plan and do what you said you were going to do, you go into the office and you perform on the days that you're meant to, and then you keep your time to yourself, because that's precious time as well. And that will make you a better employee and a better kind of all-round person if you can do that. So yeah, I think kind of being organised and sticking to the boundaries probably for me is the most important thing.
Amazing, thank you. And Daisy, obviously navigating kind of building a business, raising finance, etc. What do you think is the biggest piece of advice or the best piece of advice that you've ever had that's really helped you to shape the business that you're building?
That's a great question. It's been a really wild journey because I launched the business 7.5 years ago, and that was before Brexit, before Trump was president, before COVID, before all of the things that we experience today. And I think that had I known the challenges that the world would face, let alone retail, let alone being a startup, let alone being a female founder and what that entailed, raising money, XYZ, on top of just the general things that go on, I don't think I maybe would have had the courage to do it. So I think what I've learned is everything felt impossible to overcome every time we faced it. When Brexit first happened, no one could guide us through it because no one knew what was going on. When COVID first happened, no one could guide us through it because no one had gone through a global pandemic. And every time I thought, this is it, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to overcome this? I think now I understand everything is overcomable to a degree. And it doesn't mean that that exact thing has to be, you can completely overcome that, but you find a way, you pivot, you move, you change, you rethink, and it's okay. You find a way out of it. And so I think I used to have a tendency to catastrophize or fear or worry because of, you know, we're now a team of 43 women and 2 men. So that is a little bit of a ratio we also probably need to improve. But now where something happens and I think I've got 45 people to look after and make sure they're okay, I take a breath and I understand, okay, look what we've overcome. And so I take a moment to understand that it's not always as crazy and wild and impossible as it seems. That really is something I've learned to try and take on.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I think that feeds nicely also into financial markets, Victoria, because when I started out, I remember it was, I came into finance and it was Brexit. And again, that kind of unknown. And then I think the biggest lesson I've had is that there is always something. And this week shows us, you know, again, there's always something all the time that's going on that can create volatility or challenge. challenge. What advice would you give to people who are kind of looking at things that are going on in the world and feeling quite nervous, maybe about their portfolios or their money? And yeah, what advice would you give?
Yeah, obviously it's a scary world out there, and financial markets are quite erratic at the moment. There's plenty to worry about, whether that's developments in Iran or fears about how AI might affect our investments. I think our kind of ethos is to try and think about investing as a long-term goal, a long-term game. We don't try and be too clever, and we don't try and pick the biggest stock market single stock winners. What we're looking at is a long-term plan to invest your money so that in 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to have a much bigger pot, having put it in stable investments, than you would if you hadn't. You're going to beat inflation. You're going to have a significant size pension pot that's going to help you in retirement. Kind of boring long-term goals, I'd say. And, you know, markets do go up and down. And if you're invested for the long term, then you can ride these waves. And history shows that if you're invested long term, you're always going to do better. So you kind of got to like shut out the noise a bit. But it can be stressful. And I think just not kind of checking your portfolio every day, because you might give yourself a panic attack. And just sticking with investments that align with your own risk appetite as well, because it depends on your investment horizon, depends what you're investing for, it depends when you want to get that money out, lots of different factors, age. But yeah, just trying to kind of essentially look beyond the noise where possible, and don't try and be too smart. And we're not kind of intraday traders, we're long-term investors. And for me, that kind of aligns best with my own values, I think.
Yeah, and I think in a world that we're in today, where there's so much information, there's so much research, it's hard to, sometimes you're almost paralyzed into doing nothing because there's just too much noise. What data points or trends are you really focused on when you're looking at markets? I
mean, I try to keep on top of as much as I can. We look at things like earnings season, we look at what's coming up on the economic calendar, like inflation data, unemployment data, Bank of England rate decisions, Fed interest rate decisions. So I mean, there's a lot to keep on track of, and yeah, I'm sort of thinking a lot of the time about what our clients, what our customers are doing. So we have access to a lot of data that shows what our clients are actually investing in, whether there's a particular interest in tech stocks this week or more interest in gold. And then that's where that's what I'll use to steer my attention. So I'll be driven by what our customers are doing. And then kind of another part of my role is to try and kind of increase brand awareness for our company. So I'll also be thinking about what I can be talking about that is in the news at the moment. So to try and basically get quoted and be out there on BBC or Sky talking about whatever is in the news. So that's kind of a secondary but still important part of kind of what drives my attention.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Daisy, you spoke about the importance and the gap that you saw in needing to create a space for women. I often think about my own business and legacy that I want to leave, because I think there's a real purpose behind why we're doing what we're doing, because it's very hard, as you touched upon. What sort of legacy do you want to leave in your space?
I think it's already beginning to a small degree. I think what we really want to show as a business is that stereotypes are overcomable, and that Savile Row is a place steeped in history and heritage and tradition. It's male dominated, and it didn't really ever feel like a place for women. And today, after being on the row for the years we have, looking in all the windows of the shop fronts and seeing female mannequins and seeing female cutters and seeing female tailors win the Golden Shears Award, which probably means nothing to anyone in this room, but for us, it's like the Oscars of the tailoring world. And this year was the first year a woman has ever won the prize. So for us, if we can in some small way inspire someone who wanted to be a tailor her whole life and felt that when I started on Savile Row 13 years ago, I remember being with a great friend of mine who was a tailor there, and a client coming in, and she said, "Nice to meet you, sir." And he said, "Where's my tailor?" And she said, "I am your tailor." And he said, "Don't be so silly." This was 13 years ago.
Wow.
So if it inspires any young woman to say, I can do this, because they put men on the moon and they didn't have a shop front for women on Savile Row until 7 years ago, I can be head cutter of one of the great tailoring houses of Savile Row. And although small, Savile Row has a global relevance, and it is important that we preserve and protect it, but we also ensure that there is diversity in the makeup of the street, not just in gender, but in all different ways.
Amazing. And how important do you think clothing and what we wear is for women, particularly when you're navigating a kind of male world?
We always say that clothes won't change the world, but the women who wear them will. And I think that is a very true statement. We call our clothing modern armor. And it's this idea that we change people's lives through what we do. And that sounds kind of strange, or to some people quite odd. How can clothes or fashion change our lives? But we all can relate to a feeling of when we look and feel good, and kind of give yourself that feeling of, it may not happen for many people often. It may never happen. It may happen a lot. But as women, we have very complicated relationships emotionally with our bodies and clothing. Doesn't matter what size, height, shape you are, age, whatever it may be. For some women, most women, looking in a mirror is a very uncomfortable experience. And so we endeavored from the very beginning to make that something that felt easy, and that numbers were just numbers and you weren't boxed into any particular thing. And so what happens is, for many women, this is a life-changing experience. Some of my clients have never been able to wear trousers in their entire life. Ever. Some women have never been able to wear anything other than just one piece of cloth, because they feel that their bodies don't work, don't fit to these things that we ascribe and are told that we need to be. We throw that all out the window. We don't talk about size or shape. We just make clothes that fit women. And it gives me shivers now, and there's a lot of tears in the store, because it is an incredibly emotional journey. And so it's not going to change the world, but if it makes one woman stand taller or feel better. And we get so many beautiful emails of people being like, I bumped into my ex-husband and I looked so good, and or I got the job I always wanted because I had the confidence to walk in, or I whatever it may be. We all have occasions where we want to look so good that we can really just kind of dominate and own the room, and clothes are a vehicle for that.
Yeah, brilliant.
That feeling when you find the right outfit, it's just no better feeling, is there?
Literally.
Yeah. In terms of the confidence side, Victoria, we touched on the fact that there's not often, or for both of us, there wasn't a lot of women in the spaces that we were entering. What advice would you give to women in the financial industry that maybe are kind of lacking confidence or nervous of the spaces that they're entering?
Yeah. I think fake it till you make it. Just pretend. I mean, I honestly suffer with severe lacks of confidence all the time, but I can just pretend that I'm okay. And then often the positive results will follow, won't they? And I think men just tend to have more of an inbuilt confidence, and women doubt themselves a lot more. And there's no reason for that. Like, there's all these kind of unhelpful stereotypes, I think, about women in investing, which is that we're more risk averse, which doesn't play out in the data, or that we're not as good at investing as men. And it's just not true. So I think just kind of fake it. And it's just that men have bigger egos, don't they, essentially, than us.
Perfect, thanks. And Daisy, your business has gone far beyond kind of where it started, and actually now is global in its outlook. What can you talk to us about that expansion and how it's been navigating building a business overseas compared to the experiences that you had starting off in the UK?
Yeah, I think I can certainly relate with the fake it till you make it. We've been doing that since day one somewhat. And also I'm someone who also suffers from anxiety and have had things that have held me back my whole life in that kind of thing. So the idea of sitting here 7-8 years since building it is a joke. I could never imagine that anyone would want to turn up to hear me speak, let alone shop with us and create what is our business now. But of course, scaling and growth and getting Natural out there to the masses has been something that has been a dream. And we were very lucky that early on we started what a lot of brands do now and trunk shows and pop-ups around the world. And America was a big market for us. And we were on a mission to empower as many women as we could through clothing. And the biggest problem that we face is that women want what we do and don't know we exist. And so we wanted to be able to see and meet as many women as we could. And so America began, and it is a whole different beast out there. And it's funny geographically looking at how shoppers are different with colors and shapes and styles. And it's been an amazing learning journey. But we all collectively share one thing, which is that we want to be the best versions of ourselves. And we want to enhance the things we love about our bodies and disguise the things maybe that we don't. But tailoring is an art and a magic, and we can really help women do that. So scaling overseas has been amazing, and I think we'll be opening up in New York at some point very soon. And we do trunk shows in Texas and Palm Beach and New York and LA and Dallas and all over, meeting incredible women around the world. And it hasn't been without its challenges, as we know, with tariffs and the various things going on. But we continue on this mission to really try and take it to the global stage and meet as many women as we can. Importantly, not always women that have to shop with us. We really build out a community in helping women understand, just through styling advice or coming into the store, just being part of our community of people that just want for better, who believe the retail system is broken and the luxury kind of system and service and experience. And we really want to redefine that and show women what quality and customer service should look like, whether they shop with us or not, but benchmark that.
I think it's really interesting, the point on community, because that's very much been part of my own journey. There aren't other financial firms that have created community, and I think particularly as women, we want to meet other people who are doing similar things and bounce ideas and become part of something that's bigger than potentially just the business itself.
But also, I'm not in your industry, but I would love to be part of a community around that, whether I can invest or not, or whatever it may be. And I think these communities where people don't feel pressure to invest, to buy, to take advice, to whatever, but to be around it and be able to understand what good looks like, or what their industry should, who's leading that, and who's you're a great example where you're there able to tell people what good should look like, and we can either be part of it as a client or we can be part of your community, and that's really nice.
Thank you. We've spoken a lot about evolution and, through Daisy's business journey. How, Victoria, how do you see the financial world obviously we've seen a lot of change, but how do you see it evolving further over the next sort of 5-10 years?
Obviously we're at this huge inflection point with the rapid proliferation of AI, and none of us have a crystal ball, so it's difficult to say exactly how it's going to play out. But what we do know is that we're at this moment of huge change. And it's going to mean changing jobs, whether that's job cuts in some areas, possibly job openings in other areas, and roles that we don't even know about yet. I think what I really want to see is greater participation from kind of groups who don't typically invest in the market. What we really believe in is kind of the democratization of finance. We want investing to be accessible to everyone. We want fees to come down. We don't want any more hidden charges. We don't want companies to exploit people anymore. We want it to be a fair and open industry where everyone feels included. So much more inclusivity. And that comes with things like getting rid of all the jargon, getting rid of that fear factor, getting rid of the feeling that it has to come with a lot of risk. And again, just back to my previous point of just thinking of investing as a way to develop your wealth over the long term, and that it should be accessible to everyone.
Perfect, thank you. Daisy, we touched on the raising money kind of journey, which I think for anyone who has been on it, then you can echo that it's a very challenging, particularly with the fact that often women, albeit I completely agree with what you were saying, Victoria, that I think we're stereotyped into not being as risky and not taking as much risk with our investments, but there are definitely fewer angel investors that are female, and I really saw that when I was on my own journey to raising capital in my business. But what advice would you give to any founders here that are on that journey of raising money?
Well, starting with the fact that I didn't study economics, maths, it was really not my strong suit. And looking back, I do wish I'd studied business at university instead of maybe the course that I'd done. But I think doing what I do and starting a business is like taking, the crash course. But I really endeavored. I took night school and I did everything I could to try and understand what, DCF graphs and, reading a P&L and understanding it and being able to, that was a big anxiety point for me, was standing up in front of mostly men and trying to raise capital on an idea that, with the premise that if it doesn't exist already, why are you doing it, kind of thing. They would say, you're doing men's suits for women. No, that's not what I'm doing. 88% of my cap table when I started was male. We're now 70% female, which is really, really exciting. I couldn't find women to invest in me in the beginning for various different reasons. I've only ever taken private investment so far. But 2% of VC funding goes to female founder businesses. We know this stat. It's only going down. It went up. It's going back the other way. There's a whole other side of what I do where I could talk for hours on that. But advice-wise, with the scare stories that you hear out there and the experiences we've all had of feeling, certainly myself, like I'm a stupid little girl that doesn't know anything in front of all these men that are going to grill me on what I know. The best advice I was ever given is, you are the only expert in what you do. You're the only expert in what you do. You may not be the best expert in tailoring or the best expert in fashion or the best expert in whatever it may be, but you know your business better than anyone else that you're put in front of. And so don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer, because it shows strength. And these are basic things, but they're things that in the moment you think, oh God, I need to give a smart answer. They've asked me something and I don't know the answer. And actually I learned in life, when I'm on a panel, when I'm anytime interviewed, I was on the BBC, she asked me something I didn't know the answer to say, do you know what? Actually, I don't know the answer to that, and I'll come back. And there's something very powerful in that, in admitting I don't know everything, but when I do know something and I tell you something, I really know it. And secondly, just feeling really confident in knowing that you really know the answers about your business. And as long as you stay in that zone, then you should feel confident enough to really speak about it. And the passion and authenticity and the love of what you do will shine through. And at the very beginning, that's what people invest in. They want to see that you have a viable business plan. But at the beginning, it really is down to the founder. Do they have the guts to do it? Do they have the drive? Do they have the ambition? Do they understand their market? Do they? So it really is a lot about you. And some people find that intimidating. But I think in having a bit more confidence and the passion that gets you to be crazy enough to start your own business anyway will shine forth and lead.
Amazing. And final question from me, another one for you, Daisy. Looking ahead for the next sort of 5-10 years in your industry, what would you like to see in terms of your growth for your business? So
I talked about redefining that luxury retail experience, and I think truly it is broken. I think we can all relate to the fact that the quality is tanking, the prices are soaring, the same Chanel shoe bag, Gucci, this, that you bought 5 years ago is double the price. You know, I bought these shoes the other day and I said, well, what happens when the strap goes? And they go, well, you have to get it fixed. You know, they won't do that. They don't want to help. People just want money and sales, and people are just numbers. And we will change that. We, for the same price that you can buy, you know, whatever it may be out there, with us, you can have someone who knows about your nightmare mother-in-law or your favorite coffee order or your sick dog or your kid's first day at school. You know, they also know what shade of lavender you like. And they know that you don't really want to look in the mirror when you're being fitted. And they know that, you know, so many things. And it's the authenticity and just feeling that someone cares. We've all been in a shop when a retail assistant, A, looks like they don't care, B, feels like you're not someone that should be shopping there, makes you feel that way, and C goes, you look so good in that. And you think, I look awful. Why are you telling me I look good? I now don't trust you on anything, you know. So I think it needs to change. And so you walk into, please come to our store, look at what, you know, ready-to-wear quality looks like. We have little weights in the back of the jackets to keep the vents down. All our buttonholes are working. When stripes are all, checks are on it, it matches up perfectly. And then look what's out there and look what they're charging. And so for us, it's let's level set what good should look like, and let's change that. And the more people that can experience it, the more people will understand what they should be asking for. We're also B Corp certified. B Corp does not do enough to tell people what that means, but it's hugely important. The standards have got even harder. It's, you know, we have to know everything, and transparency of supply chain. And then you get people like Laura Piano who get told that they're not paying their workers properly, and you think, gosh, you know, even the big ones that you really felt hope in. So for us, it's doing everything that we're doing. And my biggest challenge, which my investors will say, is scaling that, because no one believes that you can scale quality and customer service. And my mission and the industry in changing that is proving it is possible to do that.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. That's my questions concluded, but I'd love to open to the floor if anyone has got anything that they'd like to ask Daisy or Victoria this morning. Oh, Anna?
Daisy, I just have a couple of questions. You changed your name. Sorry. How scary was that?
Sorry.
Changing the name. Because I've been following you since the beginning.
Oh, thank
and
you.
I thought, oh, they've changed the name.
Yeah. So we changed our name. That's a really good question. We changed our name 2.5 years ago from The Deck to my surname, Natchball. And briefly, I'll tell you why. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my entire life, because you have to back yourself that people love you and adore you and want your stuff enough that they'll know you even changed it, understand, shift over, follow you. It was called The Deck at the very beginning. I was lying on a friend of mine's apartment floor going over and over names, because it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, I think, is name your business. And at the time, it was about, we only did suiting. It was about 4 suits and a deck of cards, changing up the deck, reshuffling, prioritizing women. And there were all these really sweet, lovely analogies around the deck and suits and spades, diamonds, hearts, clubs. As we grew, we started to do dresses and skirts. We grew beyond suits. You know, we built, the business just kept growing, and it's doubled every year. And people were saying, why is it not your last name? You know, what, we want to feel part of a family. It feels like it's a family business, Savile Row, you know. And actually, for me, it felt like the most egocentric thing anyone could do is name a business after themselves. No judgment to anyone else. This is my own feeling. I thought, why would anyone, you know, but that no one will, it's a weird name. It's a surname. It doesn't feel, anyway, to cut a long story short, too many people were saying it. And as I'm trying to scale this and slightly pull back, we thought to create that feeling that people were part of something bigger and a movement and a family was a really nice touch. And actually, thankfully, people have thought that it's a great move, and it feels much more like a brand that will be here in 200 years. But I did have a funny lunch in New York a couple of weeks ago where a client was sitting opposite me talking about her tailor and how great her tailor was, and did something almost identical to what I did. And she was a bit kind of, who are you? And afterwards we realized we were talking about the same. She was also a client of mine, but under the deck, and hadn't realized it had changed to Natchball. So but yeah, by and large, it's transitioned smoothly, but it was terrifying.
Right, yeah. Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to ask about how the world's sort of heating up temperature-wise, and what do businesswomen do when they have to, they want to wear a suit, but it's really hot. So, because that's That would be one of my
I'm
first questions.
so glad you asked that, because the thing I always talk about, which my PR say you should talk less about in public, is how much people sweat, and that's not necessarily the sexiest thing to talk about. But I am someone who is a hot and sweaty person, and I never thought I'd get here right now, but it is really important, because a lot of people don't want to wear things that dry clean, because if you care about the planet, dry cleaning is not great for the planet, but it's just expensive, dry cleaning. And to wear something when you're a sweaty person that sits under your armpits all the time is slightly off-putting. And as the world is heating up and the needs for jackets are less, we have to adapt around that. So we do this in a number of ways. We can work really in a clever way around, for a lot of clients, we put in these washable pads into the armpit so that you can just pop those out, throw them in the wash, which is like such a simple thing. I don't know why everyone doesn't do it, but really helps. We can lower armholes. We can have them. A lot of people don't like things being too close to their chest. You know, it doesn't have to be set in stone. We work with, our fabrics, cloths are some of the best in the world. Wool has incredible moisture wicking properties. We can change the weave. We can look at the composition to really reduce any impact of heat and create kind of cooling systems. And so I won't go on for too much, but it's a really important point. And in the bespoke, something that all of my tailors kind of really focus on, because it's something, particularly women who are going through or perimenopausal or postmenopausal, who are experiencing hot flushes consistently, or whose body temperature, for my own hormonal reasons, changes in a flash. It's really important to talk about these things, because they are a reality that a lot of my clients are sitting in a meeting and suddenly feel like they're on fire. And, so, yeah, that
Brilliant.
way. That's...
Any other questions? Yeah.
Can I just say your secret's actually incredible. Yourself, you're just sitting there.
Thank you so much.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Obviously, this year's theme is to go, which is about really empowering women, bringing up women, giving back to women. If anyone on the panel got a nice success story of maybe somebody in your company, a female who you've inspired, who's gone on to some great things, something you're really proud of.
Do you want to take that?
I'm not sure if I can think of any individual person, but we do have a lot of women in our company, and something that I do think about a lot in terms of sort of the lack of representation of women in our industry is the fact that there are a lot of women in the kind of entry level kind of space, but the challenge is retaining those women. So if we look up to the C-suite and the executives and the CEOs, there's a real lack of women. And the issue is that it's a vicious cycle, because if you don't have the women at the top, then we haven't got mentors to look after the women on their way up. And so I suppose by kind of being out there and trying to be relatively publicly facing and talking on TV and radio as a woman about the markets is something that I'm proud of, because I'm still very much in the minority doing that. And it's cool to think that when I'm out there, there might be some younger women in the industry who think, okay, I can be in this industry too. This is for me as well. So it's, I guess, not like, I can't think of an individual female example, but I just wish I could have seen more women that I could have looked up to when I was younger. And so if I just go a tiny way towards inspiring someone, then I feel like I'm doing a good job.
Inspiring many.
I think that's just to follow on from that. You can't be what you can't see.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that there's a couple of younger women in here today who are Eliza and Eve over there, who both are kind of looking to get into financial industries, and sometimes I think it can be really daunting to try and look at a way in, particularly if you haven't studied finance at uni. I did geography. How I ended up here, I'm not sure, but I think it's really important to, particularly when you're building a business, still make time for the women that I wish I'd been able to speak to, and luckily had with Judith and Caroline, to help me to actually navigate entering the space. So I think all of us should try and help bring other people on our journeys with us.
I've actually got a question. Here I am.
You're ready. You're prepped.
Here I am. I think it would be great to get an answer from each of you on this. But I think a big thing that a lot of us face is self-doubt. And I know we've touched on, the confidence that men naturally seem to have. And I'm sort of on my journey of building my own thing. And I find the biggest thing that holds me back is on the random days where I'm a bit like, what on earth am I doing? Why am I doing this? And there are other days where I'm like, I could conquer the world. And I have no doubt there's probably links to hormone, where I'm at in my cycle and all sorts of things. But I just wondered whether each of you have got like a small little piece of advice or a tool or something that when that mindset kicks in, what do you do, or what do you say internally, or a habit that you might have to get yourself out of that, to go, no, actually what I'm doing is great.
Yeah.
I don't think I know the answer to that. I wish I knew. But no, I completely relate to everything that you just said. And I have those days of self-doubt all the time. And then other days where I'm like, I'm great, I'm doing amazing. And I don't know, I think you just got to put one foot in front of the other and just keep powering on. And I don't know, maybe write a few affirmations or something and have a few little flashcards in your purse or something, just to remind yourself of when you're on the good days and when you've got that confidence and you're not struggling with the self-doubt, how you're feeling then, somehow try and pocket that and keep that with you, because you don't want those down days to get in the way of your broader goal, do you? But I guess maybe it's just helpful to think that I think everyone has that, and it's part of being human, isn't it? And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's probably good to stay a bit humble as well. Yeah.
I think I totally agree with you. I think I was so scared the first time that I woke up wishing that I had a desk job that I could leave at 6 and never do this ever again. And I thought, oh gosh, but it's a bit late now. And so when I started this business, I started a WhatsApp group of 30 female founders that I knew, so that I could go, help, I don't want to do this anymore. Anyone else feel this way? And that is now over 1,000 women.
Wow.
And so it's amazing, and it's another passion and hobby and obsession of mine. But honestly, and please, if anyone wants to know more about it, being able to say, is anyone else struggling with X? And, have many women coming back and being like, yep, this is completely normal. We're here for you. This is great, whatever it may be. So just even in that smallest instance, being okay with the fact that sometimes you really are going to want to never do it ever again. And sometimes I come back from holiday and I dread going to work. And I remember thinking, hold on, I own my own business. I'm meant to be shiny and happy and racing back from holiday. And am I not fulfilling my dream if I'm not, Monday 9 a.m. jumping out of bed? And no, that's okay. Because also then when the highs come, you're on top of the world. And that's part of it. That's part of it.
I echo both things that have been said, but I think for me, it's also, failure, particularly in the UK, is not something that's celebrated. And I think the US, and you might be having this with your experience, it's a very different attitude towards people who have built things and maybe it hasn't worked out, and the lessons that you can learn. So when I'm panicking, I like to think, hopefully I'm a very employable individual, because I've learned a lot on this journey, and that we've been brave enough to actually give it a go and try, and I'm so proud of what we've built today. But I think it's important, and Sophie, we were talking about this yesterday with Gordon Ramsay. I don't know if anyone's seen his Netflix documentary, but it really struck me how he speaks about how it can be taken away in an instant, and even when you reach his levels, it can all go. And I think you have to hold on to that, because you're building something, and you have highs, you have lows, and it's amazing, but you need to keep that humility that actually it could be taken away. And I think it's important to stay with that.
I think that idea of just adding on to that was, I remember thinking, I wish the company was bigger because then we won't have cash flow issues, or we won't do this, or the problems just get bigger. And I think being okay with that is a really important part of the journey, and not thinking it disappears the bigger or more successful you get. And I love that idea of just being okay with it just all falling apart.
Perfect.
It's true that you do learn so much more when everything goes wrong, don't you? When everything's going really well, you're not really growing or learning, even though obviously it's horrible when things go wrong and it's not the place you want to be in. Like when you then kind of look back with hindsight, you're like, oh yes, I did actually grow so much through that, and I learned so much about this and that and myself and everything else. So trying to think of like reframe it so that when the bad times come, you can kind of think, well, I know I'm going to get there is a reason for this.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the right path, and having confidence that you know that this is your journey and that you're going in the right direction that you're meant to go on, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we've got time probably for one more question. Poppy?
I was going to ask Daisy, and actually probably Frankie, is how do you fit everything in? How do you manage your time?
Yeah. Good question.
I think it's kind of become part of me, the business. I think I'm somebody who struggled to kind of differentiate between me as a person and an individual and running the company. But I think last year I really let it take over a little bit too much. And so I have had to set some boundaries this year. But I think that particularly in this world where we're sort of taught you can have everything. I don't think you can personally have everything. I think you can have lots of things at different times, but you kind of need to go on the journey that the business becomes you. That's how I'm kind of making it, or trying to make it work for me.
I like your honesty, because whenever I'm asked that question, I'm maybe too honest, which is that I do not have it worked out. I have not a balance. And last year, it created, and it was an endocrine disruptor in a massive way for me. I had a huge hormonal issue that's affected fertility and certain things like that. So a bit of a sad note, but I think important to draw attention to the fact that there are risks with it, and balance is incredibly important, and getting the boundaries and balance in, which I didn't do soon enough, and I wish I had. And it sounds like you're getting there as well with that boundary thing. It is super important, because you do have to make sacrifices. It's not to scare anyone, because they'll be the best sacrifices you make. But I agree with Frankie, you cannot have it all, and so it's social life, or for me, I've pushed back having children or whatever it may be. And you have to be okay with those things, for sure. They're not ideal, but you can find a really great peace with where you're at in terms of it. But boundaries and balance is really important, and it's really hard to find. So my advice would be, make that the priority of anything else, because without having that, you can't turn up in the right way.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I feel very inspired. And thank you for joining us this morning. It's been brilliant.